Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask-strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1131 for October 19th, 2025. Coming up in a few minutes.
All the early years was sort of like whiskey doesn't need an age statement to be of the quality of these older whiskeys, which we still stand by. For sure. It's just sort of a testament to, this is how long we've been doing it. People aren't going to know unless you put it on the label.
This weekend, Westland released its first whiskey with a double-digit age statement, the 10-year-old 10th Anniversary Garryana American Single Malt. At least what's left of it after thieves made off with 3,000 bottles of Garryana in a trailer theft several weeks ago. I'll talk with head distiller Shane Armstrong and managing director Jason Moore about the release of this Garryana edition on WhiskyCast In-Depth, and I'll share my tasting notes for it in the What I'm Tasting This Week department. We'll also have Behind the Label and much more. The news is next on this week's WhiskyCast.
Gifting season's right around the corner. Luckily, you don't have to overthink this one. Dewar's 12-year-old, finished in first fill, unrinsed bourbon casks. It's the kind of gift that makes you look good while making them feel special. Stick around. I'll explain.
Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory. This is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Let's get started with the week's news. It's brought to you by the Dalmore. And let's begin with some good news for once. Portland's Westward Distillery has been bought out of bankruptcy by a group of its original investors. The distillery filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy earlier this year in order to reorganize its finances, and the deal is expected to close in a couple of weeks. CEO Tom Mooney will remain in his post, and all other employees will keep their jobs. Despite the bankruptcy filing, Westward has been performing well, with sales up 53% over a year ago through the end of September, and outpacing all of 2024 sales so far. Now to the not-so-good news. Pernod Ricard reported first quarter sales this week, and the U.S. and China remained soft. Overall sales worldwide were down 7.6% compared to the same period a year ago, with the U.S. down 16% and China off by 27%. Moet Hennessy also reported declining sales for the first half of its fiscal year, largely due to lagging cognac sales in the U.S. and China. Scotland's Inchdarney Distillery is planning to cut some jobs. The distillery employs 38 people, and it's not yet known how many will lose their jobs. Founder Ian Palmer told the Spirits Business that declining global demand for whiskey is behind the layoffs, and the company has to adjust to what he calls a new normal. At the same time, Loch Lomond Distillers has opened Scotland's newest distillery. The Luss Distillery opened on the shores of Loch Lomond just 8 months after planning approval was granted. The distillery will produce Loch Lomond's Ben Lomond Gin and serve as a brand home for the company's whiskeys. In other news, Jackie Thompson stepped down at Ardbeg this summer following the Isla Festival, but she didn't stay idle for long. She's joined the Elixir Distillers Portentruan Distillery on the island as its visitor experience manager. She'll work alongside distillery manager Georgie Crawford to design the tours and experiences visitors will get when the distillery opens next spring. Irish politicians are making noises about the low amount of domestically grown grains used by the Irish whiskey industry, with an eye to requiring at least a percentage of Irish grain in order to call a spirit Irish whiskey. The process governing Irish whiskey production is a technical file filed with the Irish government and the European Union, and there is a proposal to amend that file that raises the question of whether requiring Irish grain would violate EU single market laws. Agriland.ie reports the proposal is one of two being reviewed before a public comment period. Jameson is rebranding its single pot still expression as Jameson Distiller's Batch. The move honors master distiller Kevin O'Gorman, and there's no change to the liquid inside the bottle. There's also a new look for Jameson Crested. Both whiskeys will debut in travel retail, Ireland and the UK this month, before reaching the US and other markets next year. Let's talk about terroir for a moment. 2 new releases this week explore the terroir of different rickhouses in Kentucky. Wild Turkey has released the latest Russell's Reserve Single Rickhouse Bourbon. It comes from the Camp Nelson Warehouse E, a 7-story warehouse with a dirt floor close to the Kentucky River, with a unique microclimate unlike the previous houses chosen for single rickhouse releases. This one will sell for $300 a bottle. Meanwhile, the James B. Beam Distilling Company has released the 3rd series of Hardin's Creek experimental bourbons. It's a 3-bottle release that explores the terroir of different rickhouses around the Beam Complex in Claremont, Kentucky, with each whiskey coming from a single rickhouse. The whiskeys are all from an identical mash bill and matured for 11 years. I'll share my tasting notes for all 3 whiskeys in a few minutes. Meanwhile, Beam has also released a new Old Overholt 12-year-old cask-strength rye whiskey. The uncut and unfiltered rye was distilled in the spring of 2013 and will retail for $109.99 a bottle. I received a sample this week. I'll post my tasting notes for it soon at WhiskyCast.com. Heaven Hill is expanding its grain-to-glass range with a new specialty barrel series. The whiskeys are the same bourbon, wheated bourbon, and rye whiskeys released earlier this year, but these are matured exclusively in Chinkopin oak. The whiskeys come from a single corn varietal created by Beck's Hybrids and grown by family-owned Peterson Farms just across the road from Heaven Hill's campus in Bardstown, Kentucky. Each whiskey will sell for $129.99 a bottle. Let's talk about whiskey and football for a minute now. Notre Dame beat USC Saturday night in a rematch of their famous 1977 green jersey game, and Teeling Whiskey Company has released a special whiskey to mark the anniversary of that game. It's the latest Phoenix Legends release from Teeling. The 16-year-old Irish single malt is finished in Marsala wine casks. Teeling has a partnership with Notre Dame. The whiskey is available in limited quantities for $350 a bottle. Meanwhile, Blue Run Spirits is marking the 40th anniversary of the Chicago Bears' 1985 Super Bowl win with a commemorative bottle. Blue Run is the official bourbon of the Bears, and the whiskey will be available at Illinois retailers. There's no word on pricing. I don't talk about Irish cream liqueurs very often, but when I was in Northern Ireland a while back, I was incredibly impressed with Two Stacks Double Irish Cream Liqueur. It has 8 times the amount of whiskey as most cream liqueurs and is available now in the U.S. for $35 a bottle. Sagamore Spirit has released its first high-rye straight bourbon whiskey. It's made at the Sagamore Spirit Distillery in Baltimore and is aged for 6 years. It's available at the distillery and select Maryland retailers for $49 a bottle. By the way, Operations Manager Ryan Norwood has been promoted to Master Distiller at Sagamore Spirit. Turning to Scotch now, Glenfiddich has created a new XS series of single malts finished in sherry casks. The 15, 18, and 21-year-old whiskeys are finished in Oloroso, Moscatel, and PX sherry casks, respectively. They'll make their debut in China next month. The Glenlivet is reimagining its 12-year-old single malt for a new Beyond Speyside series. The first release is finished in Jamaican rum casks and kicks off an annual series of releases highlighting flavors from around the world. Kilchoman is out with a new edition of its 100% Islay single malt. It's an 11-year-old sherry cask-matured whiskey distilled from the barley harvests of 2011, 2012, and 2013. It's matured in Oloroso sherry butts and priced at £90 a bottle. Finally, Tomatin has created a new bourbon cask-matured single-cask whiskey that will be available only at UK specialist whiskey shops. The 2005 single-cask edition is bottled at 54.3% ABV. Just 240 bottles are available at a recommended retail price of £170 a bottle. You can keep up with the latest whiskey news all week long at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. The news is brought to you by the Dalmore.
Hello, Richard Patterson here, Master Distiller, Master Blender for the Dalmore. You know, whenever the team and I are in the world sharing our exceptional single malt, we like to keep in touch with Mark Gillespie and the latest news from WhiskyCast.
Let's open up the calendar now and see what's happening around the world of whiskey. Buffalo Trace Distillery will have its Halloween Night at the Distillery tours the next 2 weeks, October 23rd through the 25th and October 30th through November 1st. Tickets are available through the Buffalo Trace website. The Brandy Library in New York City has a great Scotch whiskey tasting this coming Saturday. November 1st brings us the Top Shelf Whiskey Festival in Brisbane, Australia, and the Whiskey Social in Toronto, Ontario. Whiskey Fest New York is November 14th, and I'll be at the New Brunswick Spirits Festival November 18th through the 22nd in Fredericton, New Brunswick. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at whiskycast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. Japanese whiskey began with Shinjiro Tori's vision to reflect the true nature and spirit of Japan. The House of Suntory was founded on these principles, guided by generations of craftsmanship that have transformed time, nature, and precision into something greater than the sum of its parts. Pure waters from the mountains of Hakushu, Mizunara oak shaped by decades of patience, a blending philosophy rooted in harmony. These aren't just techniques, they're a way of thinking, a quiet pursuit of balance and depth. From Yamazaki to Hakushu to Hibiki, every whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from and the hands that shape it. House of Suntory, the founding house of Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey. Seattle's Westland Distillery had never released a whiskey with a double-digit age statement until this weekend, with the release of the 10th anniversary 10-year-old Garryana single malt. It's matured largely in Garry Oak, which is native to the Pacific Northwest, and has a different flavor profile than the standard American white oak. This year's edition is also the hottest on the market. Some 3,000 bottles out of a total production of around 7,500 were stolen last month when a semi-trailer full of Westland whiskeys was stolen from the company's warehouse by a driver using faked shipping documents. I talked about this year's Garryana release this week with Westland Master Distiller Shane Armstrong and Managing Director Jason Moore. Let's talk about Garryana 10-year. This is the first time you've released a 10-year-old whiskey, isn't it, Shane?
Yeah, absolutely. It's wild to put that number on it, and considering that I've been here the whole time, like filling some of these early casks of Garryana and to arc it all the way to here is kind of hard to fully conceptualize. Like making Garryana was always like, okay, it's this year, time to make Garryana, like it's a new thing, next year, and you build up to a point where you can make a full-scale release that's at 10 years old. It's pretty wild to me.
And this is the first Westland expression to carry an age statement, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, all the early years was sort of like whiskey doesn't need an age statement to be of the quality of these older whiskeys, which we still stand by, for sure. It's just sort of a testament to, this is how long we've been doing it. People aren't going to know unless you put it on the label. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a certain age to reach a certain quality. But it's nice to show that full arc and where the whiskey can go at a certain age.
What makes this year's Garryana different from the previous versions?
Well, like you said, it's 10 years old. That's a big one. But it's,
I know you change it from year to year, though. So
yeah, it's sort of like the architecture of this one. It has a lot of small pieces. One of the biggest chunks is a portion of the whiskey was finished in rum casks, specifically Mount Gay rum casks, which we did a little barrel trade with them. That's how we got them in the first place. And what's really interesting about this one is you take Garry Oak, which has a lot of precision. It's a really big cask. And every year you're like, okay, what can it play off of? And we've done, PX, we've done Oloroso, we've done some peat. it all plays off that in a different way. And for this particular year at this age, I was able to stretch out these Garry Oak notes quite a bit, which wasn't possible at younger ages. So the esters start to really develop in these rum casks and the other casks that we brought in, and you're able to have this really big profile, which is, I usually say it's concentrated clove, but it kind of changes from cask to cask. It's sort of this spice note that's hard to put your finger on. And if you take that and you push the notes a little bit farther and farther apart, it extends the experience of Garry Oak. And I'd say that's probably the signature of this. I think Jason likes to call it elegance or refinement. I always call it space.
What does Garry Oak bring to a whiskey that other species of oak don't?
Yeah, like I said, it's that spice note that's hard to put your finger on. I always do this. This is very tired, but I say it every time. In Dune, they have the spice that drives the universe. And it's kind of like that, where it's very hard to define in a direct way. So if you look at Quercus Garryana and Quercus alba being white American oak, which a lot of whiskey barrels are made from. So apples to apples, it has compounds that ramp up the clove notes. It doesn't have quite the same vanilla notes as your standard white American oak. It doesn't have as much wood sugars, so it's not bringing a lot of sweetness to the table. So that's how the balance works. And some of those within the stocks are really exaggerated, that clove and that spice note. And other ones, it's more muted because we don't have, a big forest that's being managed of these. I mean, some of these trees are felled for other reasons. They're on someone's property. The wood has been air dried for a different amount of time. So there's variability, larger variability cask to cask than there would be in normal Quercus alba, if that answers your question.
Yeah. Are you able to find enough Garry Oak to produce the barrels each year?
Yeah, for sure. So since it shows up it's a limited release inherently, and we're always thinking about the future and planning in that way. So right now, yeah, we have plenty of stock to supply vattings at the volume we're going to. We're not worried about running out as of now.
You just have to worry about it being stolen.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Hopefully someone out there is enjoying it. It feels like the Wild West, It's like a train robber or something.
Jason, let me bring you into the conversation. You guys have a big party planned for Saturday.
Yeah, so it's our release of Garryana 10th edition, so a long time in the making. It's at this point the buzz around it. Obviously there's excitement around our very first age statement release. You tied in the unfortunate intrigue around the theft and the scarcity of the bottles. We're going to have our biggest event ever here, and so we have 1,000 people already RSVP'd to be here for the release, and we're excited to share this whiskey with our fans that have been waiting for it for so long.
What does it mean to you to finally have a 10th anniversary Garryana and put an age statement on it?
Yeah, I think it's a milestone in many ways for Garryana, but for Westland as a whole, and the work that's gone into it from our founders and the people that have touched this whiskey from the beginning. Shane, Tyler on our team, Scott, who manages our rack houses, and all of the many people that are a part of this journey, and to have this moment where we're able to showcase what our whiskey can do as a signal for what's possible with American single malt, with Garryana, and what the future of this category can look like. And so it's a long time in the making, and it's quite impactful. I've been saying that in my opinion, it's the most important release that we've done at this point, the marking of time. For such a young distillery to have a story to tell over those years is compelling, and we're all incredibly excited about it.
I have to ask about the theft, because that took half your inventory almost, didn't it?
Yeah, close to it. It was really unfortunate. I mean, it's heartbreaking in many ways to have this happen. We've now, since learned that this is happening more often, these carrier schemes that are quite sophisticated. But to have it happen on this release it was a heartbreaking thing to learn. But what I've been, and I think I can speak for the whole team here, that we've been just overwhelmed by is the level of support that we've received from the whiskey community around this. One day maybe we'll find those goods. I can't comment too much on the investigation that's ongoing. Maybe we won't, but we've put a lot of work into this, and that's why we're still excited to have it released here on the 18th, and then on October 27th is when it will start becoming available, limited quantities in retailers across the U.S.
And in more limited amounts than usual because of the theft.
More limited amounts than we've done on Garryana in quite some time, and obviously much more limited than we had originally intended. And it's with a 10-year age statement, this is not something that's easily reproduced, and so it's I think a really unfortunate mark on this release, but we don't want that to take away from what it means for the distillery and the work that Shane and the team have put into this whiskey. I'm excited for you to try it because we're incredibly proud of it.
What else are you guys working on? I know there's another new release that was part of the theft.
Yeah, maybe we do let the cat out of the bag, Shane. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. Another one that was on that truck was our blended whiskey that we just released called Watchpost, which is obviously it's a blended whiskey. So a portion of it's light whiskey and a portion of it is whiskey that we distilled in Seattle. Some of it has our signature 5-malt grain bill, if you're familiar with that, aged in new oak. It's got some PX aged in PX butts specifically, all at an 8-year age statement. So it's really sort of a privilege to make because, we know the rise of Scotch whiskey was on the shoulders of people making blends. So it was very cool to dip into that style of whiskey making as opposed to just making single malt and to express the Westland style in something that can be an introduction for people to get into, single malt in general, American single malt specifically.
Yeah, and maybe to add on to that, it's another part of the evolution of the Westland business. It's its own standalone brand, Watchpost whiskey, and it'll be launched across the U.S. in 2026. It's available here in Washington and then select retailers in Texas and Illinois as of today. But it is it's really a new venture for us to explore blended whiskey, and Shane's done an amazing job putting a high quality 8-year-old whiskey under $40 on shelves. And we think that's a compelling place to be. It also allows us to lean into something that's very important to Westland around our impact on our community. As you know, Westland is a certified B Corp distillery, and we take a lot of pride in how we operate as a force of good. So we're entering into a few partnerships we'll be able to announce later on. In this first year, $1 of every bottle sold here in Washington goes to the Washington Trails Association, which protects and preserves the trails that us Washingtonians hold so dear, being out in the outdoors. And the brand Watchpost is all about this connection to the outdoor environment and enjoying those moments.
How's the business going?
Yeah, look, I think as you've reported, it's a tough time for spirits in general as we look at consumption patterns, as we see all of these different factors that are posing headwinds for the whiskey market. And I think for us, we're fortunate to be in a position to release some new things that are compelling, that can have a different role for us in the frame of Watchpost and the very top tier of the Westland portfolio in Garryana 10 to continue the excitement. I think for us, it's just now about settling in and telling our story and trying to be more engaged and liquid to lips and really introducing Westland and in the near future Watchpost to whiskey lovers. I think this is a moment where a lot of people are able to really think outside the box in terms of innovation. So I expect there to be a lot of exciting whiskeys across the industry coming out in the next 12 to 18 months.
How worried are you about the decline in drinking?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's something that we've seen in the history of alcohol consumption over time, these ebbs and flows. For us, we operate in a relatively niche corner of the whiskey market, and we think that there is still compelling flavors to be found in Westland and the story that we have to tell. And there's still a lot of room for small distilleries, I believe, to grow even in a contracting environment. I think for us, it's a lot about consumption occasions too. And so finding out now, as people are drinking less, what are the moments that matter to them, that they're in the space to explore and to enjoy moments with premium spirits, and that's what we'll look to really put our effort into capitalizing on those moments and meeting whiskey lovers, in the moments that matter to them.
Thanks to Westland Distillery's Shane Armstrong and Jason Moore for joining us on this week's WhiskyCast In-Depth. And if you have information about the theft, contact the Skagit Valley Sheriff's Department in Washington. WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey.
Our story begins in the wilds of County Wicklow, the Garden of Ireland, a place where nature moves slowly and meaningfully. Some whiskies blend in. Glendalough Double Barrel stands apart. I'm Rowdy Rooney, head distiller here at Glendalough, and I personally oversee our whiskey making process from start to finish. We do things slowly, and we do them right. We start with a smooth, single-grain Irish whiskey. We age it in flame-charred American oak for soft vanilla and a honeyed depth. Then we finish it in Oloroso casks from a small bodega in Spain. Casks we season and ship ourselves to make sure the wood is still alive with character when it arrives. That kind of care gives Glendalough Double Barrel its rich layers of dried fruit, warm spice, and signature smoothness. This is a whiskey at its own pace, and it's worth every second. This is Glendalough Double Barrel, crafted to stand apart.
Let's start off the What I'm Tasting This Week department with the Westland Garryana 10th Anniversary Edition. As I've noted before, it's 10 years old. It's bottled at 50% ABV. The nose has touches of clove, walnut fudge brownie, fresh berries, and a hint of lemon. The taste starts off with orange peel and fresh berries. Then a kick of clove comes alive, balanced by caramel, honey, and graham crackers. The finish is long with a touch of clove that lingers nicely. I'm scoring the Westland Garryana 10th Anniversary Single Malt a 93. Next up, the Teeling Whiskey Phoenix Legends 2nd Edition, a 16-year-old Irish single malt finished in Marsala wine casks and bottled at 46% ABV. The nose has touches of apricots, sultanas, peaches, and honey. The taste is full of stone fruits along with notes of white pepper, sultanas, honey, and vanilla. The taste is long and fruity with a lingering spiciness, and I'm scoring the Teeling Whiskey Phoenix Legends 2nd Edition a 93. Now let's look at terroir with the 3 Hardin's Creek bourbons from Beam. All 3 are 11 years old and bottled at 55% ABV. Warehouse R at the Beam campus is a single-story escalator-style rickhouse with no windows. The bourbon has an earthy and vegetal nose with touches of brown sugar, honey, and caramel. The taste is earthy and spicy with black pepper, cinnamon, and clove notes, complemented by caramel, brown sugar, and honey. The finish is long with a hint of red apples. I'm scoring the Hardin's Creek Warehouse R bourbon a 92. Now, Warehouse W is a 5-floor warehouse, and the whiskey came from multiple floors. It has touches of tobacco and leather on the nose along with honey and caramel. The taste has a caramel and honey sweetness with touches of spice, leather, and tobacco notes that add balance and complexity. The finish is long with subtle spices, and I'm scoring it a 93. Finally, Warehouse G is one of the few remaining 9-story rickhouses in Kentucky, but they only use the bottom 7 floors for insurance reasons. Again, the whiskey is a blend of casks from multiple floors, and the nose is full of red apples, dried fruits, honey, caramel, and brown sugar. The taste is fruity with apples and peaches at first, followed by a slow build-up of spices with honey and caramel in the background. The finish is long and peppery, and I'm scoring the Hardin's Creek Warehouse G Bourbon a 93. Just an example of how warehouse location and design can affect the flavor of a whiskey. I'll be adding these whiskeys to our searchable list of nearly 3,900 different whiskeys from all over the world. Check it out this week at WhiskyCast.com.
Hey again, it's Gabriel from Jewers. Every holiday has that moment when the food's done and the talking, laughing, and sipping begins. That's where the perfect gift shows up. Jewers 12-year-old. Finished in first fill, unrinsed bourbon casks, and crafted by 6-time Master Blender of the Year, Stephanie McLeod. It's the highest rated 12-year blended scotch out there. A gift that speaks for itself. Because holidays aren't about the gifts we keep, they're about the ones we share. Please enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025, Jewers is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume.
Let's open up the inbox now and see what people are talking about this week in our community segment. Had a couple of comments on last week's tasting notes for the Torreveg Sound of Sleet single malt from the Isle of Skye. Discourse posted this comment in the WhiskyCast community app. I'm quickly becoming a Torreveg fan. Received and posted about getting the Knocknamoine for my birthday. I literally was driving listening to the podcast, checked and saw that Sound of Sleet was available at the Binny's nearest me and on sale. It's a tasty one and quite different from the Knocknamoine. Thanks for the review, Mark. And Scott Rogers posted this comment on Blue Sky. Just listened to the new episode, terrific conversation, and your tasting notes for the Torreveg Sound of Sleet were dead on my own notes exactly. I tasted it a few weeks ago in Edinburgh. I'd never sipped a Torreveg before. It was a delightful dram. And Hugo Dart in Brazil posted this comment in the app on last week's interview with Eric Gregory of the Kentucky Distillers Association. This week's interview with Eric Gregory was a sobering reminder, no pun intended, of the complexity of the whiskey business, which has to deal with issues of the moment like tariff wars while looking decades ahead. All success in accomplishing that is truly amazing. Thanks for all of the comments, and if you'd like to add your voice to the conversation, download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store and jump right in. You can also find us on social media. Look for WhiskyCast on Blue Sky, X, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook. Our email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. What's in a name? Well, distillery names could be somewhat fluid in the past. I'm presenting a master class featuring whiskeys from closed distilleries at next month's New Brunswick Spirits Festival, and one of the whiskeys is a bottling from the long-closed Glenesk Distillery. This distillery actually had 5 different names between its opening in 1897 as Highlandesk and its closing as Glenesk in 1985. A couple of years after it was opened, it was sold to a new owner who renamed it Northesk. It kept that name as a maltings following World War I until another new owner took over in 1938 and converted it to a grain whiskey distillery under the Montrose name. In 1964, DCL converted it back into a malt distillery and renamed it Hillside. In 1980, for some unknown reason, it was renamed Glenesk, which is the name it held until it closed in 1985 and was demolished. The site still has its maltings, though, which are owned by Greencore to this day. 5 names in 88 years. What's in a name, indeed? If there's something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you'll find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, and of course a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Get in touch with us. Download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store or find us on social media. We're on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Facebook, and Instagram at WhiskyCast, and our email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory, this is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Food's gone, stories are flying, and everyone's laughing a little too loud. That's when Dewar's 12-year-old feels right at home. Enjoy the holidays from your friends at Dewar's.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2025, and comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.